I, 25F, have a complicated family situation that recently blew up. My dad passed away last month and left me his entire estate, including a college fund he had set up for me years ago. Now my half-sister Michelle, 19F, and stepmom Deborah, 45F, are demanding I split it with Michelle since she's starting college soon. This whole situation has made me question everything about our family dynamic over the years. For context, my parents had what started as a happy marriage but fell apart when I was young. My mom was a teacher and my dad worked in finance. They met in college and married right after graduation. I was their only child and for the first few years everything seemed perfect. But when I was 5, they divorced after my mom discovered dad had been having an affair with Deborah, who worked as his administrative assistant at the time. The divorce was messy. My mom was devastated but never spoke badly about dad to me. She got primary custody while dad got weekend visits. Even through the divorce drama, dad remained very involved in my life. He never missed a weekend visit, came to every school event, and called me every night before bed. Looking back, I think he overcompensated because he felt guilty about the affair. Dad married Deborah when I was 7, just a few months after the divorce was finalized. I remember being confused and upset about having to spend weekends at their new house instead of dad's old apartment where I had my own room. Deborah tried to play happy stepmother at first, decorating a room for me and buying me toys. But there was always tension beneath the surface. Things got more complicated when Michelle was born 2 years later. Deborah's attitude toward me changed almost immediately. She became cold and distant, making snide comments about how I was spoiled by both my parents. She would say things like I expected special treatment because I was the first child or that I was manipulated for wanting one-on-one time with dad. The dynamic only got worse as we grew up. Every time dad did something special for me, buying me a car for my 16th birthday, taking me on college visits, attending my soccer tournaments, Deborah would complain that he wasn't being fair to Michelle. She seemed to view everything as a competition between us sisters. Dad had set up my college fund right after I was born, contributing to it monthly even after the divorce. It was always meant to be my education fund. Deborah knew about it from the beginning of their marriage but constantly pushed Dad to split it between Michelle and me once Michelle came along. Dad refused, explaining that he and Deborah would save separately for Michelle's education since they had joint finances. I worked really hard in high school, partially motivated by wanting to make Dad proud but also because I knew college was expensive even with the fund. I ended up graduating as valedictorian and got a full academic scholarship to my dream school. Dad was overjoyed and told me to keep the college fund for graduate school or a future down payment on a house. Deborah's reaction to my scholarship was telling. Instead of being happy for me, she immediately started pressuring Dad to transfer the money to Michelle since I didn't need it anymore. Dad again refused, saying the fund was my safety net for the future. This caused huge fights between them that I would overhear during weekend visits. Last year, Dad was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer. He declined rapidly despite treatment. Deborah immediately started pushing him about his will, arguing that everything should be split equally between Michelle and me. She claimed it was only fair since she had given up her career to be a stay-at-home mom. Dad stood firm that he had already provided well for both Deborah and Michelle during their marriage. As Dad got sicker, Deborah tried taking control of his finances. She attempted to add her name to his accounts and even tried getting power of attorney when he was in the hospital. Thankfully, Dad's lawyer blocked these attempts. Dad confided in me that he was worried about Deborah trying to take everything once he was gone. Dad passed away 4 weeks ago. The will reading was yesterday and it revealed he left his entire estate to me, the house, his investments, savings, and my college fund, which has grown to about $180,000. Deborah completely lost control, screaming that I was a greedy bitch who was stealing from my sister. Michelle broke down crying about how unfair it was that I got everything when I had already had my college paid for while she might have to take out loans. Deborah has been harassing me nonstop since then. She's texting constantly about how I'm destroying our family and depriving my sister of an education. Michelle wrote this long dramatic post on Facebook about how I'm hoarding money I don't even need while she might have to drop out of her dream school. They're both acting like I'm somehow obligated to fund Michelle's education when Dad had 19 years to set something up for her if he wanted to. My mom supports my decision to keep the inheritance. She says Deborah is just angry she can't control Dad's money anymore and that Michelle isn't entitled to funds specifically set up for me. But several family friends are saying I should help Michelle with school since she's my sister and Dad did raise her too. I do feel bad that Michelle is struggling with college costs. But I also feel like Deborah had plenty of time to save for her daughter's education instead of relying on getting access to my college fund. Dad was very clear about wanting me to have this money for my future. The fund was set up specifically for me long before Michelle was even born. Deborah keeps bringing up how she gave up her career to raise Michelle and help with me on weekends. But that was her choice. Dad never asked her to quit working. And she enjoyed a very comfortable lifestyle during their marriage since Dad made good money. She had nearly 2 decades to plan for Michelle's education. So Ida for refusing to share the inheritance, especially the college fund? Should I help my sister even though Dad clearly wanted me to have this money? The whole situation is making me question everything about our family relationships over the years. Update 1: A lot has happened since my last post. The situation has gotten significantly worse, and I'm still trying to process everything I've discovered. After reading the comments on my original post, I decided to try having one final conversation with Deborah and Michelle. I thought maybe if we could talk calmly, face to face, we could reach some kind of understanding. I suggested meeting at a coffee shop, thinking a public place would keep everyone civil. Deborah insisted we meet at her house instead, claiming she had important documents to show me. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I should have known something was wrong when I arrived and saw an unfamiliar car in the driveway. As soon as I walked in, Deborah introduced me to her lawyer, Mr. Anderson. She had ambushed me with a legal meeting without warning. They had papers spread out on the dining table and launched straight into pressuring me to sign a document. The agreement they presented would have split everything 50-50 between Michelle and me. Mr. Anderson kept emphasizing how this was the fair solution and how it would keep peace in the family. When I said I needed my own lawyer to review any agreements, he got very pushy. He started implying that things could get messy if I didn't cooperate, saying courts often favor minor children in inheritance disputes even though Michelle is technically an adult. That's when Deborah dropped the bomb: they're planning to contest Dad's will. Her lawyer claims Dad wasn't mentally competent when he made his final updates last year due to his cancer and pain medications. They're arguing Deborah should have been given power of attorney to make financial decisions. The lawyer even suggested I had somehow manipulated Dad into changing his will in my favor. I was so angry I almost walked out. Dad was completely lucid until the final 2 weeks. He was still working from home and managing his own affairs up until a month before he died. The only reason Deborah didn't get power of attorney was that Dad explicitly told his doctors and lawyers he didn't want her having that control. After that disastrous meeting, I went to Dad's house to start cleaning out his home office before the estate sale. That's when I found evidence of what Deborah and Michelle had really been up to. Dad's laptop was still there, and he was logged into his email. I know I probably shouldn't have looked, but something told me to check his messages. I found an email chain between Deborah and Michelle from 6 months ago, while Dad was going through his second round of chemo. They were actively plotting ways to get access to his accounts. Deborah was coaching Michelle on how to guilt Dad about college costs to convince him to add Deborah's name to his accounts just in case something happens. There were dozens of messages complaining about me being Daddy's favorite and how unfair it was that I had a college fund while Michelle didn't. But what really made me sick was finding proof that Deborah had been stealing from Dad while he was sick. I found bank statements showing large transfers to an unknown account, $5,000 here, $10,000 there, adding up to almost $50,000 over his last few months. When I confronted Deborah about this, she claimed she was moving money to a college fund for Michelle. But she couldn't provide any proof of where the money actually went. Looking deeper into their financial history, I discovered Deborah has barely worked since marrying Dad. She quit her administrative job right after their wedding, claiming she needed to be home to help take care of me on weekends. But I was already 7 and pretty self-sufficient. She just didn't want to work. She's been living off Dad's income entirely for the past 15 years, making no effort to save for Michelle's education or her own future. Michelle is still waging her social media campaign against me. Her latest posts claim I prevented her from visiting Dad in the hospital during his final days. The truth is Michelle chose not to visit because she was too busy with her new boyfriend. She only came once, stayed for 15 minutes, then left because she had concert tickets that night. Now she's rewriting history to make herself look better. She's also spreading lies about me manipulating Dad into changing his will. Several of my cousins have messaged me saying they can't believe I would take advantage of a dying man. They weren't around during Dad's illness. I was the one driving him to chemotherapy appointments and staying overnight at the hospital while Deborah and Michelle carried on with their normal lives. But they're believing Michelle's version of events. I hired my own lawyer immediately after the ambush meeting. He says we have a strong case to defend the will. Dad made the updates through his own longtime estate attorney, who documented everything carefully, including having a doctor certify Dad's mental competency. We should be able to prove he knew exactly what he was doing. But this fight is absolutely destroying what little family relationship we had left. Finding those emails showed me who Deborah and Michelle really are. They were plotting to steal Dad's money while he was fighting for his life. I don't think I can ever forgive that level of betrayal. My mom was right about Deborah all along. She wasn't jealous of my relationship with Dad, she was jealous of not having total control over his money. Now that she's realizing she'll have to actually support herself and Michelle, she's panicking and trying to take what she can get. The court battle is just beginning, but I'm done with trying to maintain any kind of relationship with them. Dad warned me this might happen. In one of our last conversations, he told me to be strong and not let them manipulate me after he was gone. Now I understand exactly what he meant. Update 2: The legal battle has been exhausting, but we finally had a major breakthrough in court last week. What started as Deborah contesting Dad's will has turned into a much bigger investigation of long-term financial fraud. After our last confrontation, Deborah and Michelle went silent for a few weeks. Then suddenly they had a new, more aggressive legal strategy. They started claiming Dad had verbally promised to pay for Michelle's college and that Deborah had witnesses who could testify about these promises. They even produced a letter supposedly written by Dad mentioning splitting the college fund, though my lawyer immediately questioned its authenticity. My lawyer decided to dig deeper into their finances. When we subpoenaed Deborah's bank records, what we found was shocking. Remember that mysterious account where the stolen $50,000 went? It turns out it's an offshore account in the Cayman Islands that Deborah opened just 3 months after marrying Dad. For the past 15 years, she's been systematically stealing from their joint accounts. She would transfer small amounts regularly, usually under $1,000 so it wouldn't raise red flags. She also skimmed cash from their household expense account, claiming things cost more than they did and pocketing the difference. The total amount she stole over the years is staggering, more than $300,000. Deborah tried claiming this was an emergency fund she set up because Dad was controlling with money. But her own bank records prove otherwise. The money wasn't sitting untouched in savings. She spent it on luxury shopping sprees, expensive spa treatments, and secret vacations with Michelle that Dad knew nothing about. While Dad was working hard to provide for everyone, Deborah was secretly stealing and splurging on herself and Michelle. The most devastating discovery was about Deborah's lawyer, Mr. Anderson. My lawyer found emails between them dating back to 4 months before Dad died. They weren't just discussing legal strategy, they were having an affair. They met when Deborah started planning how to contest the will, back when Dad was still alive but very sick. Their emails are absolutely disgusting, joking about how they'd spend the old man's money once they won the case and planning romantic getaways for after everything was settled. But the real shock was learning about Michelle's involvement. She wasn't an innocent bystander, she was actively helping Deborah cover her tracks. We found text messages showing Michelle would distract Dad when Deborah needed to search his office for financial documents. She helped hide bank statements and even acted as a lookout while Deborah went through Dad's papers looking for account information. When Michelle was 16, Deborah started giving her secret credit cards linked to the offshore account. That's how Michelle bought the designer clothes and electronics she would show off on social media while claiming she had no money for college. She knew exactly what her mom was doing and helped hide it from Dad. When confronted with all this evidence in court, Deborah tried a new strategy. She claimed Dad had been emotionally abusive and controlling, saying she needed secret funds to protect herself and Michelle. She even tried saying Dad had threatened to leave them penniless if she ever left him. But I had years of family videos, photos, and texts showing how generous and loving Dad was with both of them. Deborah's own social media posts constantly bragged about the wonderful life Dad gave them. The judge saw right through their lies. Not only was the will challenge dismissed, but the judge referred Deborah's case to the district attorney for possible criminal fraud charges. The court also froze what's left of the offshore account and ordered a full forensic accounting of all their finances. Michelle had a complete meltdown in court when the ruling was announced. She started screaming that I had ruined everything and that she was entitled to Dad's money because she was his real family while I was just his part-time kid. The judge had to threaten her with contempt before she would calm down. The truth is finally out, but it's heartbreaking to realize how deep their deception went. While Dad was fighting cancer and trying to make sure everyone would be taken care of after he died, his own wife and daughter were stealing from him and planning to take everything. I feel sick thinking about all the times Michelle complained about not having money for college while she was secretly spending thousands from Deborah's hidden account. My lawyer says we might be able to recover some of the stolen money, but Deborah has already spent most of it. She's facing possible criminal charges, and her lawyer boyfriend has mysteriously disappeared now that everything's been exposed. I doubt we'll ever see a penny of what they took from Dad. I keep thinking about all those years Deborah spent manipulating situations and playing the victim while systematically stealing from our family. She wasn't just a jealous stepmom, she was a calculating thief who used her own daughter to help steal from her dying husband. I'll never forgive either of them for that. Update 3: It's been half a year since my last update, and while the legal drama is mostly settled, the aftermath continues to unfold in unexpected ways. The criminal investigation into Deborah's theft is still ongoing. The forensic accountants found even more suspicious transactions dating back to the early years of her marriage to Dad. They discovered she had a second hidden account in Switzerland that she used for high-stakes gambling. Apparently, she would take regular shopping trips to Las Vegas that were actually gambling binges using stolen money. Deborah and Michelle were ordered to repay the stolen funds, but they claim they're completely broke now. They had to move out of their apartment because they couldn't afford rent. They're currently living with Deborah's sister in a small 2-bedroom condo. Deborah's sister initially defended them but changed her tune after Deborah tried opening credit cards in her name. Now she's giving them a deadline to move out. Michelle had to drop out of college after her first semester. She tried starting a GoFundMe claiming she was a victim of financial abuse, but it backfired when people found her old social media posts showing off expensive purchases. Someone even created a compilation video of all her luxury haul posts and vacations over the years, questioning where a supposedly broke college student got money for $500 shoes and first-class flights. The district attorney is considering pressing charges against Deborah for fraud and embezzlement. Her lawyer boyfriend dumped her as soon as the evidence of theft came to light. He's actually facing an ethics investigation from the State Bar Association for his role in helping her hide assets. Turns out he has a history of shady dealings with other clients too. I've had to block both Deborah and Michelle on every platform because they won't stop harassing me. They created fake accounts to comment on my work's social media, claiming I stole their inheritance. Michelle even showed up at my office once trying to make a scene, but security removed her. She's now telling people I got her fired from her part-time job by calling her employer, which never happened. The family is completely divided. Most people now see Deborah and Michelle for who they really are, especially after the court evidence became public. Several family friends have apologized for initially taking their side. My mom's cousin, who used to defend them, recently sent me all the manipulative messages they'd been sending her trying to get her to pressure me about the money. I used part of the inheritance to buy a small house near my job, nothing fancy, just a modest 2-bedroom that needs some work. Deborah somehow found out and started telling people I bought a mansion with her money. The reality is I'm being very careful with the inheritance because I want to honor Dad's wishes. The college fund remains untouched. I'm saving it for my future children's education, just like Dad did for me. Sometimes I find myself getting angry thinking about how they took advantage of Dad's generosity for so many years. He worked so hard to provide a good life for everyone, and they repaid him by stealing and plotting against him while he was dying. But I'm trying to focus on moving forward and living a life that would make him proud. My mom says the best revenge is living well, and she's right. While Deborah and Michelle continue to scheme and blame others for their problems, I'm building a stable life and career. I've started volunteering at a cancer support center where Dad received treatment, trying to help other families going through what we did. I still feel waves of sadness about losing my sister, but the truth is I lost her long before Dad died. The person Michelle became under Deborah's influence, someone who could help steal from her dying father while pretending to love him, is a stranger to me. Some relationships aren't worth saving, and sometimes the healthiest choice is to let go completely.